When my oldest children were younger, I wanted to celebrate Easter, but at that time in our life, having a 40-day reflection of looking toward Easter was just not working for our family. So I decided to come up with a plan to celebrate Easter in a week. The week before Easter, we really focus on the meaning behind Easter, why we celebrate it, what Jesus did for us, and we have some very simple activities to go along with it. So the first thing that I tell my children that week before Easter is that fasting is a way to help draw us closer to God, and Jesus fasted for 40 days in the wilderness. And so for my little ones, fasting from food was not appropriate. So what we did as a family is fasted from any type of media. So we turned off the TV, we turned off any iPads or whatever screen time your family does. We shut that down so that we could spend that week in reflection. 1 week, one Sunday before Easter, we started with 6 lighted candles on our dining room table. That night at dinner, we had 6 candles all lit up beautifully. And we started our first night of devotionals. The next night, only 5 of the candles were lit, and then 4, and then 3. And each night we would read the devotional as a family and blow out those 6 or 5 or 4 candles, and that would be that. I will link the readings that we did below this video in case you were interested. Then Good Friday, we only have 1 candle lit, and when that one blows out, then there are no more candles that night. The next day on Saturday is just a day of silence. It's a day of waiting. We haven't celebrated the resurrection yet. It's just a pause, just like it was for Jesus, his disciples, and those who loved him. It was just this silent, dark pause before the glory of the resurrection. So on Saturday, when we do the devotional, none of the candles are lit. We read about the death and burial of Jesus that night, and then we go to bed. In the morning, I get up early before my kids. I have a breakfast that is very easy for me to throw together so I can get it done early. I'll usually do like a quiche that mix together the ingredients so I can just put it in the oven or something like that. And then I light all of the candles plus an extra one for Easter. So when they come down on Easter morning, we can celebrate and say Jesus is alive, and we can read the resurrection story together at breakfast. All the candles are lit, the table is pretty. The focus is not on the Easter baskets. We do not do those when my kids wake up on Sunday morning. The focus is on the celebration that, yay, Jesus is alive. That is the focus. The most important thing that we celebrate as Christians is that Jesus conquered death and sin and the grave, and he's alive. So then the way we did it is after we would get home from church, my kids would run into the house, and there would be Easter baskets with some goodies and some, yummy treats waiting at that time. So that we still did the fun of it that day, although we don't talk about the bunny. That's not part of our family dynamic at all. But we did get fun Easter baskets and presents that were waiting there. It just wasn't the very first thing that my kids thought about waking up on Sunday morning. So that is our week of devotionals. Now there was a second thing that we did because my little ones were very hands-on and they enjoyed something that they could touch. So that full week before Easter, we mixed up a batch of flour and water and salt to make a dough, and we shaped it into a little mountain. We put a space, an empty space where we would later fit a rock over it, and I will show you pictures of one of our Easter mountains in the past. And then I would make sure that there was a hole in the top that I could stick a stick into. So it was just a mountain with a hole down in the top and a cutout space for a nice round rock. When it was baked in the oven, then my kids got brownish paint and they painted it, and it was a huge mess and they loved it. When that was all dry, this was our Easter mountain to demonstrate the story. So we took a little pipe cleaner. It was very simple. We shaped it into a little man that was Jesus. And we had Jesus just there. They could touch and play with him. He was just, next to the mountain. And then when we got to the part of the story on Friday when Jesus died, we made a little cross out of twigs that we just tied together. And we stuck that up on the top of the mountain in the hole. and we put the little pipe cleaner guy on the cross to show them how Jesus hung on a cross. Then after that day, on Saturday, so we're just a little off, but it's helping them to understand. But basically on Saturday, when we did the readings of talking about Jesus' death and his burial, we took that little guy and we folded him to fit him inside of that hole, and then we put a rock in front of it. And that's what they left when they went to bed that night, was him like that. So part of my coming down in the morning before the kids was to take the cross off the top of the mountain and to take the little pipe cleaner out of the tomb so that the stone was to the side, and I would just set him up on top of the mountain. I would kind of prop him up there so that you could see a picture of the risen Jesus. So we did this along with the readings that we did. And like I said, this was super simple. I needed something that was very simple. That time when my kids, when I had all small ones, it just felt like a huge feat of just feeding and clothing them and washing them and putting them to bed. I just wasn't up for anything complicated. So we kept Easter very simple but very focused. We didn't do a screen time. We did, each night we came together for readings, and we looked at our little Easter mountain as a remembrance of what Jesus did for us.